As we age, I feel like we owe it to ourselves to reconnect with our childhood memories. As joyful or painful as that may be, those situations and relationships define who we become. Many of us hold on to memories of situations that others have long forgotten, but years later, those memories still affect how we navigate life situations. This theme resonates when playing Cricket Jay's Really Peculiar Game, a title developed over many years by the sometimes one-person development team of Studio Kumio. The narrative of this nostalgic-inducing RPG adventure is a look into real human struggles that we face, or at least know someone who is facing, every day. The twist is that in Cricket, we see these issues being navigated by a group of imaginative kids on an impossible mission to bring someone back to life. Cricket Jay's Really Peculiar Game introduces us to Jay, a young boy suffering from the passing of his mother. While his dad is out of the picture, his older sister checks on him as she attends college. Jay has an impulsive personality that isn't explicitly defined in the opening hours, which allows for some nuanced complexity to arise from his character development. He and his best friend Zach are on a mission to deliver some flowers to Jay's mom's grave when they discover that the store has been robbed, which sets them off to retrieve them. From there, they meet a strange girl named Symphony on a quest to the legendary Yamilia, a place that is said to grant wishes. The only problem is that it exists on the moon. Regardless of feasibility, Jay and his friends set off with the hopes of reviving his mom. From here, the narrative takes the group to new towns where 3 other characters, named Acacia, Twyla, and Charlie, eventually join the group. One standout element of this narrative that I enjoyed is how this semi-large cast is rarely forgotten about. The story does a great job of balancing the cast across the narrative beats, making them each an essential part of the adventure. That said, the pacing of gameplay between significant story moments is more relatable to a Saturday morning cartoon, similar to Recess, as the group tackles issues as they come, but leaves a few to linger and connect future story moments. While the writing is delivered in an easy-to-digest way for the reader, it can come across as rather overly personal. There are a few moments that related to me in a way that I didn't expect, but others that I felt like I was just learning about how some people navigate social interactions or how the writing team navigated them at one point. While each character has their own underlining issues, Jay's is the most prominent. Throughout the story, there are moments where he speaks up or is dismissed by one of the other characters. He'll begin to retreat to a place of doubt, but then snap out of it. Some moments in the writing explore modern social interactions in a way that I don't see other games attempting. Situations like saying something that is taken out of context, or even referring to someone as the wrong gender, are addressed in a way that doesn't come off as pandering or out of place. It exists in this group of friends in the same way it exists in our group of friends. Still, the more personal moments of the story, like particular character interactions, give the impression that I'm reading the developer's diary. Gameplay in Cricket reveals a rather ambitious set of options. From the opening, you probably assume that the large town will act as a hub for the remainder of the game, but you move on to the next town rather quickly after the first boss. Sadly, as much personality as these towns have, there's really no reason to hang out in them. I found this a significant oversight as I was going through the game and not making any memories in these towns I visited. The compromise is gaining a new party member and learning about the town's happenings through them, but there's definitely missed potential by not having optional side quests that give life to the NPCs. Interestingly, I believe there was meant to be more to do in towns at one point because there's a morality gauge that's affected by your interactions with the NPCs. If you walk away from a conversation or throw something at them, the people will start to hate you. This will increase your morality gauge for a limited time, making enemies more challenging and increasing the experience following the battles. However, I never really used this system, which can easily be skipped, leading me to believe there was more to do in towns at one point during development. Further, there's really no reason to worry about challenges or difficulties because there's an option to win any fight. Strangely, this is listed right next to Run, which only gives you a chance to flee the battle. I believe this option should have been available if someone selects an easier difficulty than normal, and only because it removes any sense of accomplishment the player feels for overcoming tough enemy patterns or bosses when there's just an option to win the fight and reap the rewards if you want. Still, an argument can also be made for the inclusion as it means more people can experience this story, or if the combat exhaustion sets in, players can just get through it all easier. But in this case, I'd rather only have a run option. Anyway, the combat system is pretty fun as it borrows from the likes of Mario RPG, where a precise button press adds damage to attacks or beefs up the defense. Here though, there are 2 options. press A at the point of impact, which is a little less strict on timing, or B, which is more strict but adds extra effects. It's responsive and fun as each ability and attack animation is matched by a unique guide to show when to press a button. I appreciated how this made the matches quicker, but missing a button press doesn't really mean you'll lose. I found the difficulty to be reasonably balanced. Upon entering a new area, you'll have some trouble getting through fights, but after a few levels, they become more manageable and eventually the grunt enemies will just run from you. As you fight, you'll gain experience for the characters, which raises their friendship levels. This level will increase the character stats and possibly unlock new abilities. Abilities utilize DP but are more effective than regular attacks, which don't consume any DP. Joint attacks along with any attacks can also be powered up using a tension gauge that fills up as you take actions. It's possible to power up your attacks up to 3 times, which gives like a Bravely Default vibe, but its implementation here is pretty surface level. You can also consume the gauge meter to slow down time to block an enemy attack easier, but I rarely if ever used it. Again, all of these systems make for a decent turn-based combat system, but it's evident that there could have been more here. What I mean by this is that there are remnants of systems that weren't explored before their introduction. For instance, you can find equipment in hidden chests, but there are only a few pieces of equipment for each character and an accessory slot that doesn't really need to be there. While I don't think this will stand out to anyone casually playing this adventure, I find it amazing how you can almost guess which systems resulted from someone saying, that would be really cool to have in here, and then they just did it. Funny enough, in the imaginative world of cricket, it kind of makes sense to have it this way, but this is at the cost of the player experience. That said, cricket is an adventure best experienced in the same way you'd enjoy a Saturday morning cartoon. On a morning of a day off or the weekend, you could just join this quirky group of friends and tackle some over-the-top mysteries searching for a path to the moon. Some moments of the narrative are rather heavy, but I feel that the natural approach to tackling nuanced issues, such as grief, loss, and friendship, is done respectively to the reader, if only to convey one way to navigate the problem and not to burden them with perspective. Still, the moments when the characters are reminiscing about past trials made me feel like I was part of this group as well, and that's all I could really have asked for. Cricket, Jay's Really Peculiar Game, is a very personal story that touches on modern and nuanced social issues under the umbrella of loss, which we all struggle with. A deep sense of nostalgia fuels the experience through the colorful turn-based battles and imaginative boss encounters, providing older gamers with a familiar stage and giving newcomers a chance to enjoy an RPG from beginning to end, regardless of their skill set. While the overall experience could have been more focused with less time spent on half-baked systems, it's an enjoyable and charming adventure that will easily find its audience. Wheezy Pixel is giving Cricket, Jay's Really Peculiar Game, a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.